Well, this isn't the life I set out to have. I thought I was a human resource consultant. But my marriage fell apart. And when my marriage fell apart, it really fell apart. And overnight, my life was scary. So out of desperation, one day, I picked up a journal and I wrote frantically across the top of the page, "Dear God." Now, why did I do that? I really have no idea. But the second that comma hit the page, it was as if it was an invitation. And I just started pouring myself onto the page, telling this God everything that was happening, and are you paying an ounce of attention, and hello, why are you letting this happen? Now, the very first day I wrote 30 pages. Nothing profound happened, but I felt better. So the next day I did it again, and again, and again, just pouring my story onto the page. And then one day, I think it was about 7 or 8 days into the writing process. I didn't at that time know I was going to be writing a book about this, so I wasn't like looking at myself on the page and saying, look at that, there's a little wisdom on the page. But that is what happened. And so I followed it. I didn't have any other resources. And day after day for 2.5 years, I wrote every day, and I made the shifts in my thinking and in my behavior and in my life that I was learning about on the page. And I completely changed my life. Oh, and doesn't life have some interesting, difficult questions at the moment? We're all asking the same questions. The process that has worked for me and so many people is to ask those questions on the page. On the page. You start having a dialogue with your inner knowing, your inner awareness, your inner knowledge, and you ask the questions here. You test them out here. And slowly, maybe not day one, but slowly, you begin to hear yourself. You begin to ask really rich and deeper questions. And you begin to get answers, just little tiny answers, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of wisdom. And over time, you begin to realize that you have this safe place to ask the big questions of life. Well, everybody wants to know what's next, right? And we all want it to be something better. But you know the step that everybody forgets. And looking back at my story about how the first thing I did when I was writing was talk about everything that was happening to me now as it was, that's step one. Step one is get clear about where you are. Where you are. So the first thing I would do in my writing practice, I'd be saying, well, here's what's happening now. And how do I feel about what's happening now? If you're aware of Pennebaker's research, all of his writing advice to his students in psychology was write about your deepest thoughts and feelings about what is happening. That's where you start. What is my life right now? And what are my thoughts about it? And what do I feel about it? That's the foundation. That's the basement. Now, when you are really in touch with where you are, you can start asking questions about, well, how did I get here? Let's look back at the patterns. Let's connect the dots to my life to date. And you begin to become aware of the story you've been creating. And then you can start asking, what do I want? What do I want? Where do I want to go? What would my life look like if it were the life I want? So you don't just, say, okay, I want X, and ta-da, I expect the universe to give me X. You build a knowledge of your story to date, and then you start asking about what you want. And I think you'll find when you have that kind of rich dialogue over time, you can create the life you want.